Hello, good evening, and welcome. Well, as we know in Africa, according to our sayings, when the elephants fight, the grass gets trampled, especially the grass that doesn't bind together. Well, that was pretty much the message that was delivered in Davos by Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada and the former Governor of the Bank of England. So an intellectual heavyweight in an environment where, well, they are fairly rare. Carney says that you need to look at the world differently if you are a country like South Africa. His address is already being cited as one of the best ever delivered at the World Economic Forum.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And this aphorism of Thucydides is presented as inevitable, as the natural logic of international relations reasserting itself. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination. The multilateral institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat. And as a result, many countries are drawing the same conclusions, that they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance and supply chains. And this impulse is understandable. A country that can't feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. But let's be clear-eyed about where this leads. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. And there's another truth. If great powers abandon even the pretense of rules and values for the unhindered pursuit of their power and interests, the gains from transactionalism will become harder to replicate. We have a recognition of what's happening and a determination to act accordingly. We understand that this rupture calls for more than adaptation. It calls for honesty about the world as it is. We are taking the sign out of the window. We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just. This is the task of the middle powers. The countries that have the most to lose from a world of fortresses and the most to gain from genuine cooperation. The powerful have their power. But we have something too. The capacity to stop pretending, to name reality, to build our strength at home, and to act together.
Well, the big news on the local front is the emergence of a letter that relates to the 18 South Africans who went to Russia to be trained in the military and ended up on the front lines of Ukraine. Well, at least that was the idea. It's well worth remembering that being a mercenary is illegal in our country. But what makes this letter so interesting is that it is signed by the former president, Jacob Zuma. My colleague Chris Steyn spoke to the founder of the MK party, Jabulani Khumalo, who reckons there's a much deeper and darker agenda behind all of this.
In my view, is that Zuma is trying to build his own military wing within the country. I think he's got some sinister thinking of what he wants to do. Maybe it's a coup or something else, but I'm afraid the state needs to look at him more careful. Because what he has done, for me, is a wrong thing, and the government should not promote it. And he should answer for what he has done, because that letter shows that he knows very well why those men went there. And if he's trying to make his own army in the country, then the government must take actions. What are they afraid of? They must act on it.
Because what were they told? That they were going for bodyguard training?
Yes, that's a lie that they were told when they left, but only to find that they were not going there for training to become these bodyguards. Instead, they went there to fight. They became mercenaries, which is has their own policy in the government, and which Zuma has, when he was a president, he took an oath to say that he will abide with these rules and laws of the country. But he's the first one to break it now. But the government is silent on it and is not doing anything. They must punish him so that everyone will see and understand that if you do something wrong in South Africa, you will be punished. Zuma needs to be punished for what he's doing.
If you read the letter carefully, he was trying to suppress that from coming out, and he was urging the Russians to immediately take action so that there would not be an international scandal.
He's very good on that. Yeah, that's his style of doing things. He makes wrong and then he becomes a victim and he wants people to sympathize with him. That's his style.
But you believe the letter is definitely authentic, that is his signature?
I believe so, but I'm not sure.
And it was sent to the Russian defense minister?
Yes.
You don't think it could just have been him trying to cover for his daughter Duduzile? Cover for people involved in the human trafficking?
Remember, what Duduzile does is what Zuma has already thought and put it into action. Dudu is just the pen on an exercise to make sure that that thing happens. That's all.
We've been focusing on Iran this week, and in the third installment on that turbulent country where things are coming to a boiling point, we hear again from the academic, economist, and entrepreneur, Iranian-South African Iraj Abedian. He says there's an important backstory to the unrest that has claimed more than 10,000 lives, and it's one that we need to be paying a lot of attention to. I asked him to tell us whether there was a broader message.
It's not about Iran, it's about a global situation where different institutions within the society, most importantly, the institution of business, investment community, they have become less and less involved and worried about the socio-political trends because they are making so much money, because they are counting their dollars, so to speak, and their bank accounts or their balance sheets. Therefore, they are not paying attention to the slow but inevitable brewing of social instability, the abuse of democracy even, abuse of voting system, abuse of governance system, etc., etc. And that is where the social immunity that I referred to, when the social immunity begins to fail against the masses can only tolerate so much. 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, depending on the history and the composition of the nation. I see this is a pattern that is emerging when the different competing and contesting institutions within the society, they let go of their responsibility. You cannot have a government not abiding by its own constitutional principles. You cannot, by the same token, have a business community, the capitalist, the investment community, with enormous amount of power, the power of job creation, the power of growth generation, tax generation, prosperity generation, to abdicate their responsibility by being silent. And by being silent, you become complicit in the mismanagement of the economy. You become complicit in the unethical corruption, everything else that goes on. It is not that they are not involved. It's them, they are silent. They become complicit in the slow and very, very corrosive mismanagement or missteps that politicians engage in. That's part of the contributing factors. And of course, in the age of digital communication, the youth whose future is being traded on these altars of being politically correct or being this or being that, or being taking care of myself, I don't care about others. They can see what's happening. It's no longer you and I can cover it up or justify it. They look into your eyes and they say, you are trading my future away. You are taking away my opportunities, my life. And therefore comes a point where in Bangladesh, where in Iran, like now, and elsewhere, it wasn't so that far back that Kenya did the same thing. They stood to the government that thought, we are government and we do what we like and we will beat the hell out of you if you know. They pushed back. Yes, there were some casualties, but the president had to back off. The Minister of Finance had to back off. So I think that's the reality of what I call it, the inversion of power pyramid.
Robertson, a small town in the middle of nowhere where a wine farmer claims to have sold a Volkswagen up to We Buy Cars. A farmer. What car did you really sell them?
A VW up.
Right here in Robertson.
Small town, but we know about We Buy Cars.
Yeah, but what's a farmer doing with a VW up?
It was just a runaround.
Cool cover story. And I see you traded it in for this, like a double cab Carney. Well, were they all out of ranges?
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Now, here's a turn-up for the books, especially those of you who've been following Magnus Heystek over many years. He has been incredibly anti-investing in property to the north of the Western Cape border. But now not so much. Here in today's wealth-building tip is the independent financial advisor who tells it as he sees it.
Now, here comes a statement that is going to upset a lot of people. I actually got an email from someone I know very well, and she asked me the question, we have some money, should we buy a property in Cape Town, and should we buy or a property in Johannesburg? And my answer to her was, I think the Cape Town property market has turned into a bubble. It's an absolute raging bubble. Everybody is buying little tiny apartments, hoping they're going to make a quick buck. And if you had to buy Cape Town, you had to do that 10 years ago. And whereas Johannesburg, if Helen Zille just marginally improves things in Johannesburg, I think Johannesburg can offer far greater value. If you look rand for rand, what you're buying in Johannesburg, for instance, in the suburb that I live, Dane Fern, and I've been living there for 30 years, I look at what you can buy for an amount of 6 or 7 million rand. I can buy a magnificent home on the golf course. And I've got 2 willies on both sides gates, and I've got 3 gyms in the area, and I'm close to the airport. Take that 7 or 8 million rand, and I can buy a 2-bedroom flat in Cape Town. And you know, logic just tells you it's out of balance. And the property marketers are excellent, the estate agents are excellent, but there is going to become a glut of properties for rent on the market. And the prices at some point will hit a ceiling, and I think we're very close to that. So my advice to this lady was, I would put my money in Johannesburg right now. It's all about being a value investor, learning from the greats of like Piet Viljoen or Warren Buffett. I think Cape Town is totally overdone. Joburg is underdone. And that's where I would buy, if I was a youngster or a young family, I can buy a magnificent house on a golf course with space. You can't get that in Cape Town for double the price.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow. Cheerio.